I'm just jacking up threes, and I'm
Man,
gonna end up hitting
oh
my threes.
man.
He ended up
What's
getting
going
me
on, everybody? Welcome
but
back
for the most part,
into the Celtics Talk Weekly
it was
post-game show. I am
slowly
your
working, getting
host,
to the spot. Look at
Rob
that smoothie
Hayton.
right there. That's what we call
Joined
a
with
Smith,
me is my
right?
co-host,
That's a
David,
nice one right there.
Jameis,
He's got
and
another
Ian.
smoothie
Guys,
coming up.
how is it going? Celtics drop a bad one tonight in Charlotte. 121 to 118, despite a 45-point effort from Jason Tatum. Celtics go 3-1 on their little road trip here. A lot to dissect, a lot of talk about, guys, right? I mean, some were good, some not so good. A lot, honestly, not so good. But Seamus, I'm going to start with you, and we'll go down the line. Your initial thoughts, your takeaways, your reaction from tonight's embarrassing loss in Charlotte.
Okay, let's first shine light on Jason Tatum because he was amazing tonight. We have to start with Jason Tatum, unfortunately, because individually, I said something on my story earlier about the NBA not handing out individual awards, truly. And I believe, individual performances, though, maybe we should find a way to try and do that more accurately. But tonight, Jason Tatum was stellar despite the loss. However, this loss in the long run for the Celtics, I believe, probably won't mean anything, come April, May, because it's November, and we've seen losses in November, December, and even January, February not mean anything to a team before. So I don't think in the long run, sitting here in November, it will really matter. But looking at it right now for this little stretch, this was just a terrible loss. A terrible loss. The game was in hand multiple times to start off. I mean, the Celtics had the game in their pocket. I mean, they really did. They had multiple leads. It felt like they had the lead pretty much throughout this entire game, all the way up until overtime. And then the Hornets, they pulled ahead just a little bit, and then they were eventually able to pull it out in the end. But too many opportunities for the Celtics were just given away by the team. And I do think, too, we kind of discussed this a little bit before the game, but I believe the team was going to be gassed coming into this game. I mean, last night they played in Memphis. I was in the building last night in Memphis, and that place was crazy. I mean, for a 2-9 team, a 3-9 team, a 3-10 team, that place was absolutely nuts. The Celtics, that was not an easy win to pull out. Last night, they come into Charlotte tonight. They have to play an extra 5 minutes. And you could just see Tatum was missing layups. Despite the 40-point performance, Tatum was missing layups down the stretch. And the entire team, Jaylen Brown didn't look on his game. He, of course, is coming off of a strained groin, as we all know as well. So the team as a whole, I will say that taking it with a little bit of a grain of salt here, fourth game in 6 nights on the road. Every game was very challenging for the team. The problem is we didn't come out with the win. The win was right in front of us. It was right in front of us. And the Celtics could not come out with a win despite not having Derek White and Al Horford. I mean, there's so much to talk about in regards to this game, and I'm refraining from talking about a certain particular moment and person. I think you all know exactly who I'm talking about right now, and I feel like it's the elephant in the room, but I'm going to refrain talking about him because I feel like I'm going to get too far off on a tangent talking
Right,
about
right.
this topic. I mean, I'm just so disgusted at tonight's game, both with the Celtics, both of the fact our opponent had someone out on the floor who maybe shouldn't have been out there.
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying that this is also unfortunate, not for the fact that the Celtics just lost, but now my streak of undefeated appearances here on the post-game shows is now ended. So I think I'm at 3-1 now. Yeah, I will say it's emotions are pretty heated right now. I'm going to try and stay rational in the sense that it is a November loss, and I mean I'll definitely get over this. Like we have 68 more games to go or something like that, so. It is what it is. We are going to lose games like this. Me and Justin actually talked about this the last time we were both on a post-game show where we knew this was going to happen, where we were going to build a big lead and blow it. I'll give credit, tip my cap to the Hornets tonight. Guys like LaMelo Ball, I hadn't watched too much of him, so it was fun to watch a full game with him from start to finish. He's a super exciting player. I don't know if you see too much of like an East-West game as much as he does in like an NBA game, but he was just making a lot of crazy shots, like acrobatic threes, where it wasn't even like just stepping into his form down. So he really carried the Hornets on his back tonight. Yeah, I mean, just the common consensus I've seen on social media, and this is true, is that he played with fire this whole road trip, and we got burnt finally. The game against Philly came down to the wire. We were able to squeak one out. Game against the Raptors, we squeaked that out with Derek White, at the end. The game against the Grizzlies last night just gave us all a heart attack with the way that one almost ended, but we squeaked that one out. And then tonight, it just finally came back to haunt us. All the missed free throws, which I've been talking about, has been an underlying story of the season so far, in my opinion, with how many free throws we're missing as a team. We went 18 for 28 from the strike tonight. And some really, really timely missed free throws tonight from guys like Jrue Holiday and Jason Tatum, which really burnt us. Offensive rebounds, I believe the Hornets behind Mark Williams had 19 or 17 offensive rebounds. And it just just some unfortunate shooting nights from guys like Jaylen Brown and Sam Hauser. But, this loss hurts. It stinks, but again, it's only November. It's very frustrating. But, I'm just trying to do my best to stay rational throughout this fall.
They lost. Yeah. I don't know. There's really not a lot of things you can honestly say. There's a lot you can talk about as to what went wrong. I don't know how rationally I'll be able to talk about them. So I guess the only thing you can really say is they fucked around and found out. They pardon my language.
You're good. You said it. You're good.
They did.
We're on 7-second delay.
They pulled this exact thing against the Grizzlies last night. They've done it a couple times this season already, but they just happened to hit shots in the fourth quarter, and it didn't look like much. And I don't know. I mean, I don't really understand how you can have a performance like Jason Tatum had, where he dropped 45.
I said this earlier. Yep.
I mean, he's not acquitted of blame because 31 of those points came in the first half. So the second half, he didn't look very aggressive at all. And I think the Celtics' biggest problem was that they didn't feed Jason Tatum more.
Yes.
Especially coming out in the third quarter. The third quarter absolutely screwed the Celtics tonight, in my opinion. The fact that, I mean, I like the fact that Tatum was trying to get other people involved, but the fact that, Jaylen Brown ended up shooting, 5 of 14 tonight?
Yeah.
29%.
5 of 17, actually. Sorry. 5 of 14 was Kristaps Porzingis, and 5 of 11 was Jrue Holiday. Sam Hauser was 1 for 9. I mean, the fact that Peyton Pritchard was the second leading scorer might be all you need to look at. But I don't know. The Celtics just played like they were up by 50 in the second half for no reason at all. And I get it. You're on the second half of a back-to-back and stuff like that's going to happen. But I don't really think there's any excuse to that. I don't know. 10 missed free throws. I don't know, man. I don't know. Charlotte wins, America loses. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a good way to put it. So, in all seriousness, though, this is a concerning loss, in my opinion. I do think that, yes, it is only 14 games in. Yes, it's a game in November. In the grand scheme of things, there's a good shot that we come back and we look at this game and it means nothing, because it probably does. However, I think this game and the past couple games are showcasing things and problems that the Celtics team might have. And I think I can confidently say through 14 games, mind you, I'm not going to 100% say it, but I can say it with a little bit more confidence tonight that Joe Mazzulla needs to figure this thing out, and he needs to do it fast. Because this looks like a bad coached basketball team. The talent is winning this team games. 11-3. So mind you, this is a team where the talent might be so good that they might be able to do it themselves. However, late game execution we've been so good at throughout the course of the season so far, so I credit them there. But those third quarter struggles we have is a direct correlation of a bad coached basketball team. At halftime, you go into the locker room and you make adjustments. I haven't seen Joe Mazzulla do any of that so far. I really think that this guy might be in over his head with his coaching methods. This team is not the best three-point shooting team. They're taking way too many threes. His inability to get the basketball into his best players' hands in key moments is a problem. And I think his inability to make substitutions. Can someone tell me why Shvi Mihailuk got minutes tonight? And can someone tell me
why the entire bench was playing
in the fourth quarter? Or how about the fact that O'Shea Brissett played 5 minutes in the second half in a game in which we were getting out-muscled and out-rebounded? O'Shea Brissett had 7 rebounds in 17 minutes. He was the third highest on the team in half the amount of time in which players played. I mean, that is a real problem. I mean, these are real problems and it all goes back to Joe Mazzulla. I am a little bit, I get it. It's one loss and I'm not going to overreact. However, this loss, 100% no question, without a doubt in my mind, falls onto Joe Mazzulla. And this is something else I want to talk about. So, Jaylen Brown, he was terrible tonight. I mean, he was god-awful tonight. 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists on 29% from the floor. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if who's an analytical guy. I don't know if you believe in plus minus, but minus 23 on the court tonight for Jaylen Brown. He just signed that $304 million contract extension. He's had a lot of ups, but he's had some downs this season, guys. Seamus, Jaylen Brown, what's speaking out to you? What's going wrong?
Well, I feel as if we've kind of seen these kind of streaks from Jaylen Brown his entire career, where there will be a couple games this season where he scores 35 points and puts up great efficiency, and we're going to come in here and give him great praise. And then he's going to have other nights where he kind of just looks like somebody who can't get his rhythm under him. And I will say that I think that this game in particular does need to be taken a little bit more. Now, in the moment, it seems like it should be taken more seriously, but I think it should be taken more lightly in the long run from the fact of this is the 4th game in 6 nights. It's the 2nd game of a back-to-back. They were in Memphis last night. They're in Charlotte tonight. And I know that those 2 opponents seem like they're 2 opponents the Celtics should just breeze through. And honestly, tonight, they should have secured the win against the Hornets in the end. But I do attribute some of that to just the fact of they've been on the road for so long and they've been really just scuffling through these games and just getting out by the skin of their teeth at the end of the day. And I think Jaylen Brown, he's kind of he's a big part of this team, but a part of his game, it's kind of been hindered, I would say, a little bit by the fact of the Celtics have been on the road for so long, and also it's the early season. I will remind everybody we're only 14 games into the season at this point in time, and right. I will say there's a lot of time for things to get right, but I do agree with you a little bit, Rob, from the standpoint of I think this needs to be a process where Joe Mazzulla needs to find out a couple of things about his team sooner rather than later, because it's not only about the playoffs, it's about the trade deadline too, and where your team is going to go off in the trade deadline. Do the Celtics need to add on or do they not need to add on? And at this point in time, we've kind of talked about the bench. Peyton Pritchard looked amazing tonight, and maybe, Derek White, Al Horford, if they're in this game, maybe we win, no problem. But it still doesn't excuse for the fact the Celtics lost this game. Jaylen Brown didn't look like himself again. Maybe that's part of the groin strain again. I mentioned that earlier. I don't know why. Now, I really want to get into another conversation here, too, with the Celtics coaching staff and Joe Mazzulla and past medical history as well with the medical staff in Boston. As we know, a lot of players have been injured, played on injuries, and have kind of exited Boston with a not so great review. However, I wonder if Jaylen Brown is ever going to sit out after what we saw. He slipped on the floor, I believe in Toronto it was on the play-in court. He never sat out a game. He got to it right away yesterday in Memphis, and then tonight he plays a good amount of minutes, but he didn't play as many minutes as, say, Jason Tatum. I noticed at the end of regulation, Jason Tatum had 40 minutes under his belt, and that's really why, again, this loss is terrible for the Celtics. All of these guys played all these minutes for what? An L, a giant L, in which they should have came out with a W in.
Right.
But these guys played a ton of minutes. Jaylen Brown played less, and I wonder if he's actually ever going to sit out a game. I felt like tonight or even last night was a great opportunity for him to sit out because of the Celtics opponents. You're really, the opponents the Celtics played, there aren't really any more easy teams in the NBA like there were back in, say, 2015, 16, 17, when you really had true tanking rosters. Even the bad rosters have talent nowadays. Like the Charlotte Hornets have Gordon Hayward. He was an all-star on our roster, and he's still an all-star level player. He hit a huge shot down the stretch. The Grizzlies still have Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane. Those are all-star level players. However, those opponents, you're not really going to see too many easy opponents like that on your schedule coming up if you're the Celtics. And I felt like this was a moment to rest Jaylen Brown. They didn't. And moving forward, we'll see what happens in regards to him, because we saw his performance tonight was a little subpar. But the conversation I really want to get into with the coaching staff is Jason Tatum played from the end of the first quarter pretty much all the way almost to the end of the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken, or halfway through the third quarter. He basically didn't come out of the game for a massive stretch. And I know he had halftime in between there. But this is the second night of a back-to-back, 4 games in 6 nights. Why is Jason Tatum playing that many minutes in a row? I understand he was hot tonight, but why is he playing that many minutes in a row? You guys mentioned it. Why is the entire bench on the floor at once in the fourth quarter when the game is not in hand at that point in time? Well, why? I feel as if these are things in which only happen to head coaches who are new in their tenure. And that is Joe Mazzulla. He's 35 years old, and let's face it, he's new. He's very, very new. How many years would it take Joe Mazzulla to attain a head coaching job if he were not put in the position last year? Now, in the long run, I want to stress this. I do believe in Joe Mazzulla in the long run. However, right now, we do see games every now and then and moments where it's just head scratching. What the management of even just the minutes alone, forget game planning, forget scheming, forget whoever, like the minutes.
I mean, Sfima Hailuk play just subs in randomly.
Yeah, well, see, this is the problem. This is the problem the Celtics have had ever since Joe Mazzulla took over. And like you say, Seamus, I believe that one day Joe Mazzulla can be a good head coach in the NBA. I think he can be a great head coach in the NBA. He's a very smart guy. He knows a lot about the analytics. He's very good at that. It's just some of his decisions in game are some of the most brain dead decisions I've ever seen by a head coach. Like, I really don't understand how. Now, I know it worked out in his favor. However, I don't understand why you have a bench unit in the fourth quarter with Sfima Hailuk, O'Shea Brissett, Sam Hauser, who technically was a starter, Peyton Pritchard, and Luke Cornett. I don't understand how you run that lineup out. They give up a long scoring run to the Hornets. You call a timeout, and you put that exact lineup back in the game. And I know it ended up working out for them because they ended up scoring points, but come on.
I just something that doesn't make any sense.
I just don't get it. I don't understand. And like this feels like an organizational thing, because anytime a Celtics player is on the court, there's just like a time in the game where just something random happens that like shouldn't happen. And like I've been wanting to talk about this for a little bit because it feels like every game there's something like that happens with this player. Drew Holiday. I feel like we're not talking about him enough and how his making brain dead decisions sometimes. Like I know we talked about Marcus Smart and how prominent his decisions could be at times, but Drew Holiday makes some of the worst basketball plays I've ever seen in my life. I'm sorry. And I love Drew Holiday. I love Marcus Smart. I love all these guys. But Drew Holiday has to slow down. Like, take a second to breathe before driving the ball straight into three defenders.
I do think
taking
that
a shot, 2 seconds into the shot clock.
I do think there is a sense of it. There's still just an adjustment period for Drew.
And I know, and I'm not trying to be completely critical about Holiday because, like you say, it is the adjustment period, and he did just get here, and he barely had any time to play with the team. Like I get it.
Right.
It's just sometimes.
No, I don't disagree.
It feels like there's so many unforced errors.
Right, but I think those are coming from the coach's inability to put players into spots in which they succeed in. The head coach, mind you. Something we have seen, and that's been front and center for the Celtics team, is Jason Tatum's efficiency in the post. The fact that when the ball is in Jason Tatum, the ball is right, the whole team, right, David, right? When Porzingis gets that mismatch and Tatum's in the post, when you get the ball in their spots, it's a simple, easy decision maker. You're either going up or you're passing out, not isolation play. When that is happening, this team is playing at a much higher level. That's coaching, and that's the Sam Cassell effect, because that didn't happen last year. So what I'm seeing, Joe Mazzulla effect, a lot of bad three-point shots. And something I do want to say, and mind you, that we might in 5 weeks from right now be in a phenomenal position, even though we're in a phenomenal position right now. But the worst types of coach in sports are the ones that believe that they are smarter than everyone and know something that no one else does, and they stick to one certain thing and never adjust. Those types of coaches are truly, historically speaking, the worst coaches. And I am starting to get concerned that Joe Mazzulla might be one of those arrogant coaches that cannot admit he's doing something wrong and would rather go down burning on his beliefs than adjust and change his scheming up. Because right now, you cannot shoot 53 three-pointers against a Charlotte Hornet team that is terrible at defense and does not possess a center over 7 feet tall. You cannot shoot more threes than twos against a terrible interior defensive team. That is just
Rob, what
bad
about all
coaching.
the times that it actually works?
It is just bad coaching. And listen, that has I'll let you go real quick, David. That has really, really take the floor. That's really stuck out to me.
Yeah, so I'll just try and play devil's advocate. We kind of talked about it a little bit. Just like I want to try and get in the mind of Mazzulla, because we kind of talked about the analytics a little bit, and that could be a whole separate show. Hopefully that is a whole separate show on this channel. But he's like, we're all kind of new to this idea, especially within the Celtics organization, where he is like fully embracing this idea of analytics. And he talked about it a lot last year, where he likes the 3-point shot because he likes math. 3 points is better than 2. He sees an opportunity like tonight, where I believe coming in, the Charlotte Hornets take the most 2-point shots in the league by percentage wise, and the Celtics are up there with the most 3-point attempts each game. So he probably looked at that and said, let's just fire away the 3. I think we saw this a little bit in the second quarter, where we were starting to pull away. Tatum was starting to take over, and it was a lot like last year, where it's like, okay, instead of just continuing to let the offense flow and let whatever happen, we're hitting these threes. Let's keep trying to hit these threes to go for the kill shot. And then that's how the Hornets started to creep back into these games, into the game tonight, and they just kept on sticking right there, eventually snuck up on us and won the game in overtime. And It's just definitely a bit of an adjustment period where we're seeing this millennial head coach, abuse analytics, and a lot of it is right too. Like we talked about with the post. I mean, I think the Celtics are the third best team in the post this season. We're averaging like 1.2 or 1.3 points per possession in the post. So it's a great opportunity. I love when we go into the post. That's a new thing, like you said, Rob, that we're seeing this year.
Right.
It's a whole adjustment period, I think, with Missoula. And it's crazy to say we're still adjusting to a head coach when he's in a year two. But
I just feel like
I get the logic. I'm
yeah,
definitely in
I,
the minority with this, maybe with this group, but I get the logic with his decisions.
I just feel like
Sorry.
he's getting the ball. He's putting the ball in the hands of these players and operate in situations they're going to fail in. I mean,
minutes,
it's like I'm not seeing Jaylen Brown get the ball in his spot. Putting him in a position, okay, JB's having a bad game. Boom, action goes to Brown in a spot where he is super effective in. Right? It's like, okay, well, you know what? Porzingis is rough. All right, pick and roll. We're gonna get him on that switch. We're gonna put him in the paint. We're gonna get him a touch. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing, okay, I'm gonna have these group of players play to my strengths and my coaching wants and needs, and that's not coaching. That's bad coaching. You need to play to the strengths of your players. You got to put them in positions to succeed. This is an incredibly talented basketball team. A lot of these guys can do more than just one thing, but just having them sit there and chuck threes up, which is essentially what they're doing. I mean, it really is just shoot threes. We shoot more threes than twos. And I mean, we've seen it with the Rockets in 2018. I mean, the one team that's ever done it is the Golden State Warriors. And even still, they play some phenomenal basketball. They move the ball. They look to get into the paint and swing the ball out. I mean, they're not a spray and pray team. And if we're going to be spray and pray, then forget it, because it won't happen. And I'm telling you, you need to start seeing those 3-point numbers go down. And if they don't, then my confidence, because at some point, at some point they're not going to fall. And what happens when it's a game 7 on the road in Milwaukee and, you are shooting poor from the 3-point line. And mind you, how does a loss in November get all that far? But it's something you have to think about. And I think it is something
Well,
that,
it's something we've seen. We saw it
right.
in Game
Yeah.
7 versus Miami.
Right. So, and this is a new team. And if the same problems are happening with a new team, then what is it? It's got to be the coach, right? It has to be the coach. You cleaned house. You got rid of Smart. You got rid of Grant. You got rid of Rob. You got rid of Malcolm. You brought in these 2 phenomenal all-stars. You elevated Hauser and Pritchard. If these problems still are consistent and relevant, I think it goes to the coach. But I mean, I will say the one thing, the benefit of the doubt, real quick, guys, before I let someone else go here, is that it's the second night of a back-to-back. No White, no Horford. This team's tired. What did you say, Seamus? 4 games in 6 days. Charlotte played a hell of a game, and it's an 82-game season. You're going to lose some bad ones. So I'll give them that, but that's what stands out so far for me.
I love how the NBA went, we're going to take away the 4 games in 5 nights. We're going to make it 4 games in 6
nights.
It's like, it's not that huge of a difference. It's a little bit of a difference, but I mean, 4 and 6 is still pretty tough. Like, guys are like, oh, well, the old timers like, well, they don't do 4 and 5 anymore, but they do 4 and 6. Now, in regards to the conversation about taking threes, not taking threes, I kind of have bits of your 2 guys' arguments here, and I believe they kind of go together. Number one, the name of the game in the NBA is drive the lane, make defenses collapse,
kick out,
and then swing it around. But I will say that I believe what the Celtics are trying to do philosophically is correct. However, I believe some of their attempts late in the shot clock and even just, as the ball is going around the perimeter, a lot of these guys on the Celtics roster do have a quick trigger. We have Kristaps Porzingis, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Tatum, Brown. They all have quick triggers. Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford can even I mean just mentally I'm saying they have quick triggers. Like not even if they're quick not even if they're quick shooters. I mean at the end of the day, like their mentality is we're shooting. And I believe some of that mentality sometimes does go a little bit overboard, and maybe there needs to be one more pass every now and then, just one more pass. Or, sometimes a guy might pass up a good look or a worse look and overpass. And I feel as if there have been a lot of those possessions this year that we have philosophically the right idea, but the moment in which we shoot is just not exactly correct. And I think over time that can fix itself as we continue to play basketball later into the season. But it is something that does need to fix itself in time, because otherwise you want to get the best shot quality. I think that is something that was so underrated about Ime Udoka being in Boston, is the fact everybody on the Celtics roster, when he was the head coach, their shot quality was insane. I mean, the reason that team made a turnaround, other than the additions of Derek White and Daniel Tice at the trade deadline, the shot quality of the team went whoosh. In January and February, all the threes that guys were missing, all the shots guys were missing in October, November, December, when we were coming onto this broadcast going, oh my goodness, should this team blow it up? Should they split Brown and Tatum apart? All of that time period, all of those missed shots, their shot quality was terrible. Later in the season, once they developed their offense and their offensive philosophy, and they, of course, inserted players into the roster that made more sense, the Celtics got rid of Dennis Schroeder and Josh Richardson, replaced them with Daniel Tice and Derek White. It fit way better, and shot quality went up. This team, I believe their shot quality has the potential to be very, very high. And on most nights, you're probably arguing that they do have one of the better shot qualities in the league. But if you do want to be an elite team consistently every single night, you're going to have to take good shots.
Don't think you can shoot
when the ball is kicked out to the perimeter, or when guys are, of course, getting their opportunity to play minutes. Guys just have to take better shots.
I don't think you can shoot 53s and be taking good shots, though. I think that it's never worked, and it never will work. It's the 3-point, statistically speaking, the highest clip in the NBA you're going to shoot from the three is what? As a team, probably 40%. I mean, can someone fact check me here on what the highest, as a team, the highest 3-point percentage throughout 82 games? I'm gonna look it up right now. I should have this on deck. Highest 3-point. Yeah, so someone go while I look this up.
I have a Jaylen Brown career-old laptop here, so there's no way I'm getting it before anyone else.
All right, 43% was by the Charlotte Hornets in 1996 and 97 is the highest 3-point shooting per game averages. The Warriors
to today's volume, though, like what is that? They probably took like how many threes a game? Like,
well, all right. So the most modern team,
two are like 40.
The most modern team was the 15-16 Warriors with 41. They shot 41% from three. The team in which
how
they
many
shot.
Threes did they take a game?
I can tell you right now. The Warriors in 2015.
I get your point, but like. I think the problem is, if we're talking about the Warriors, they had generational shooters in Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, so they can get away with that.
You're right.
Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday, they're not Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
They're best inside the paint, like inside the arc. It's like you're taking players and saying, "Listen, you're not very good at this. You're pretty good, but you're gonna do it." And if it works, I'm going to look great. And if it doesn't, I'm going to keep doing it until it works, maybe. It's like, where's the logic there?
the one thing I don't like from the 3-point selection I've seen more this year, I don't really think we saw it much last year, is that, especially with Drew Holiday so far this season, he's passing up layups in the paint for 3-point shots outside. And it's like we're watching a game of NBA 2K My Park when I see that.
I don't what you do on Park.
I don't like that at all. So I can agree with that, absolutely.
Yeah,
But he did that. He's done that his whole career, though.
It's just
not
like
going in right now.
Right, that's true, because again, like, remember last year we started off 21-4, and in those 25 games, I mean, we're shooting the ball at a historic clip. I mean, it was literally an historic clip, and it's great when it's falling, but when it doesn't fall, and again, what in the playoffs last year, we weren't really live and die by the three. We were getting to the paint. I mean, the 3-point shot didn't determine our offensive night. More so it did our defensive night. If it wasn't falling, we kind of got lazy on defense. The one game I can really point out, I mean, obviously game 7 against Miami and game 3 against Miami was pretty rough. But I mean, game 6 against Philly, on the road, our shot was not falling, and we stuck with it. So there is that. But you want to develop good habits in the regular season, and 53s per game will never be a good habit to have unless you are a team full of the 3-point contest contestants, where it is truly the best shooters in the league on one team. Jason Tatum has never shot 40% for his career from 3. Jaylen Brown has never shot 40% from the 3 in his career. Those are your 2 best players. You're not playing to their strength. That's a problem that should be checked. Mind you, 11-3. We're halfway to the point where we address our final assessments, right? However, we do have to get to this one segment, guys. The player of the game. Tonight's player of the game, I mean, you probably guessed it, Mr. JT. Jason Tatum tonight in Charlotte was on an absolute tear despite the Celtics 3-point loss there in overtime. 45 points, 31 of those coming in that first half explosion, or that second quarter explosion he had going on there. He had 13 rebounds. 9 of those were also in that first half. 6 assists, 4 of those coming in the first half. 6 made 3-pointers. 4 of those coming from the first half, and you had a -5 plus minus. It was still negative, but it was second highest on the team as you take a look out of our player of the game tracker. I'm sorry, that's one. Oh, there it is. Jason Tatum. He is still in the lead, holding down that top spot. He's got 5. Jaylen Brown is second with 3rd, and then Mr. D White, who obviously missed tonight's game due to personal reasons. He's got 2, and Mr. KP's also got 2. Seamus, I saw your face. It looks like you have something to say. What is it?
Okay. Just looking at the league rankings for the Celtics real quick. First of all, we need to take more free throws. We have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on our roster.
Because we're shooting threes.
Kristaps Porzingis. Yeah. 25th in free throw attempts. But this is kind of where I'm like, yeah, you definitely have an argument for us potentially taking too many threes. And I will say, we still want to be taking a pretty high volume of threes, but when you're ranked first in 3-point attempts and 30th in 2-point attempts per game, I do believe there needs to be a little bit more of a balance to the team than completely last in 2-point attempts and completely first in 3-point attempts. That's going radical, like both
Seamus,
ways.
quick question. For
sure.
What is Jason Tatum doing when he's at his best?
I mean, he's driving to the rim.
Okay. What is Jaylen Brown doing when he's at his best?
He's driving to the rim.
So why are you not doing that when your 2 best players are at their best, when they are driving to the rim? The 3-pointers, they're great. I love them. You're right. I would 35 to 43s a game, especially if we're getting to the rim first. Let it fly. I mean, we got some great shooters. Hauser's a great shooter. Pritchard's a great shooter. D. White, Horford. These guys have turned into great shooters. KP's ability to stretch the floor, that's a plus. Use it. But when you're just sitting back and hucking up threes is essentially what we take more threes than 2s. Then a team, if I'm a coach, I'm saying, listen, I'm okay with that. That's fine. If they really want to punch the numbers on us, and I mean, really, it's just something that it's so frustrating, and I'm probably overreacting a little bit. But I mean, it's just bad basketball.
We're also 19th in assists, and I don't have a number to back this up right now, but last week I was looking at our play type frequencies, and just a couple of formulas in which I believe were working the last, 2 years ago. I really look at Udoka's team because I feel like Udoka was kind of the gold standard, and then now we're rolling with Mazzulla, who is a hybrid of being with Brad Stevens and Udoka, and now being on his own as a head coach. So I think it's just a little bit different, and just some of the frequencies within our play types this year are a little different. Just a little. The distribution's a little bit different. I will say one thing though. I think we were talking about it a little bit earlier. The posting up. I wonder if this is going to be like something that catches on in time with the NBA. But the post up is coming back. Post up is totally coming back in the NBA because number one, we have players that can efficiently post up almost anybody because we have guys like Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama coming into the league, even like Kristaps Porzingis, who can get to the rim with their length or can, step back and hit a shot on you. So that combined with the fact of there's so much action that you can run out of a post up with the dominant player who can pass, because you're putting the defense in a position, in a help position where, not only could they score if you're leaving them alone on an island, but if you don't, you're leaving them in a position where they can make a play for somebody else. And that's what we see so often with the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, Giannis, and the Bucks are posting up even more. Jason Tatum and the Celtics. All these teams are posting up a little bit more than the last couple of years. And I believe the post up, it's not coming back to the entirety in which it was here, say back in the 90s or early 2000s, when teams were posting up about a quarter of the time, it seems like. And that was really their main philosophy on offense, is give it to the big guy, let him go to work in the post. Now it's much more advanced where you can run tons of action off of post-ups. And, of course, when you have a dominant player like Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, or Embiid, I didn't even mention Embiid. Embiid's one of the most dominant post players of this generation. All of those guys, when you have players in the league like that, so it's a lot more complex, and teams can do a lot out of that, and so can those individual players. So I think that's coming back within the league. But I know there's a little bit of a tangent from what I was talking about in regards to the Celtics, which was three-point attempts and play type and whatnot. But the Celtics are a part of that revolution, which you kind of have to feel good about, I guess. To some degree, of course, we have Jason Tatum.
Right.
Yeah.
Go for it, Ian. Go for it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's really weird because it feels like there's so many pieces in place. Like, we know the best version of all of these guys. It just feels like they're trying to, fit the square peg in the round hole.
Right.
This team isn't the Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
I'm really, really starting to wish that they realize that. Like, even the Golden State Warriors, weren't shooting threes like this insanely amount. I don't know. It just feels weird. It literally feels like the jamming the square peg into the round hole type thing, because there is, all the solutions are there. Everyone
100%.
can work. Everyone on this team can drive to the rim. They can hit the mid-range shot, and they can shoot the three at a good clip. They can all do it pretty good. Porzingis, that's the other thing that's starting to annoy me, is that we're just using Porzingis as a spot-up shooter, it feels like. We're trying to use him like he's Robert Williams, which, I don't think is going to work. I feel like Porzingis should work in the mid-range a lot more than he has been.
Right.
All he's been doing is, he's the back-to-the-basket game has been really good. He's hit a lot of tough shots, going to the rim. He's made a lot of good putbacks, and he shot a lot of threes. But the mid-range game was kind of something that made him really good last year, and it feels like they're completely abandoning that. And the only person that's taking mid-range shots now is Jason Tatum. So, I don't know. It's such a weird dynamic.
Which he may be taking a little bit too many, by the way. I'm just going to say
Well,
that.
he saw him go in what was that, Philly, where he
Yep.
had like 3 or 4 of them go in.
So I think that like when you look at this team through 14 games, I give them an A, not an A plus, not a B plus, but an A. I think they have in a majority of the time they've been really great down the stretch of the game. 2 out of their 3 losses, or 3 out of their 3 losses, are games in which Derek White didn't play in. That continues to be a key piece is Derek White. So let's not forget that. And again, at the end of the day, you're not gonna play 82 games and not drop one of these types of games where it's like, oh, you should have won it, but if you really look into it, what are
We
you
haven't
gonna
even
do?
gotten blown out yet, too. That's the other
Right.
thing.
Exactly. So for sure. I do think, however, the past 5 games or so has raised some questions with this team. In regards to their play style and their coaching. However, we got a big one Wednesday night against Milwaukee at home. So guys, before I close out the show, your final remarks in terms of what needs to happen against the Milwaukee Bucks in order for the Celtics to get back in the win column at home, Seamus.
Well, in regards to the Milwaukee Bucks, I believe we're going to have to undoubtedly score some points because that team can put up some points quite quickly. However, defensively, of course, they've had their moments this entire season. It was kind of amusing seeing the Bucks and the Mavericks go at it the other night. Kyrie Irving versus Damian Lillard gave us a classic performance, but neither defense really showed up whatsoever. And right. I'm very interested to see this version of Bucks versus Celtics. It feels a little bit weird to have Jrue Holiday on the Celtics, I will say, just in general, because Jrue Holiday was a player we all wanted multiple years ago when he was with the Pelicans. Of course, the Bucks traded for him. A lot of us said, yeah, that would have been a perfect addition for the Celtics. And then later on down the line, the Bucks ship him away for Damian Lillard, and then we make the chess move and go get him. And now the Bucks versus Celtics rivalry in the East, we have their guy. It's kind of like if the Sixers had Marcus Smart somehow. I mean, it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like Jrue Holiday should be here, but I'm happy that he is because, I mean, he was an absolute to play with the Bucks, and I'm very interested to see how this matchup plays out. But I do want to jump back real quick before ending here my entire statement about the Celtics moving forward is I do want to piggyback a little bit on what Ian said in regards to Joe Mazzulla and the team and you know the square peg and the round hole. I do think every coach, they have different teams, right? I was listening to Stan Van Gundy dispute statistics a couple months ago, and you know, I find Stan Van Gundy a very intelligent person. I mean, we hear him on the TNT broadcast. He's a very entertaining guy, a very friendly guy. But he was disputing statistics and analytics and, you know, win probability and how to play basically in basketball back in 2015 when the analytical revolution was really taking place in basketball. And of course, the Warriors are really the first team to win an NBA title shooting a high volume of threes. And back then, he was disputing that, you know, I'm not going to look at the numbers because I know what I have in my locker room. That's basically what his argument was, that I know my players. I know what my players are going through. I know how this guy operates. I know where this guy wants his shot. I know where this guy wants to go. I know how this player plays in this particular situation. I know what this player does in this particular moment. He said that he knew his players more than the analytics. But although I think that's a tiny mistake, I still think there's some truth to that in basketball. And I believe they go hand in hand, the physical analyzation and the numerical analyzation of basketball. You have analytics to guide you numerically, but you also physically can analyze your team from an emotional standpoint, which the analytics may not always account or adjust for in the long run. And I think in regards to the Celtics and Joe Mazzulla, maybe this isn't the entire situation, but it might be, considering what you guys are, you know, expressing within the analyzation from your guys' perspective of the Celtics, is he might be going very, very heavy analytical right now. and completely ignoring the personnel that he actually has on the team. And if that is happening, that is kind of a sign of being a new head coach. And that's a part of development of being a head coach in time, potentially, is that you get to know your team, you get to know your personnel. Right now, Joe Mazzulla might be following the analytics down to a T, the league averages, what teams should be doing at any given moment, but not looking at what personnel he really has on his roster. That's a potential problem with being a new head coach and being the captain of such a great organization in which has tremendous hopes of a title here in the future. But I'm just speculating a little bit on this. I don't want to call
Right.
Joe Mazzulla out or call the team out or call any of this out. But it's just a theory that maybe, just maybe, he's going very heavy analytical and not too much on the physical analyzation of a team, when I believe personally that they go hand in hand at the end of the day. But that's really all I have to say about the Celtics tonight. Tonight was a terrible loss. And to Miles Bridges, there you go.
Yep. Final thoughts. Yeah, I agree with Seamus on Miles Bridges' point. And when it comes to them playing against Milwaukee, I mean, the team's not going to change their entire philosophy overnight. So I don't expect any huge changes within their offensive game. So since they're playing against Milwaukee, just hit your 3-pointers. Hit all of your 3-pointers that you're going to shoot, because then it'll look great. Because
And they're gonna
we
give
hit
you a
all our
lot.
threes.
you know
And
what
they're
yep.
gonna shoot a lot of 3-pointers against Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's gonna give up a lot of 3-point attempts. So make them and win the game. That's all I got to say about the game for Milwaukee.
Yeah, so final thoughts for the game tonight. I think it was probably Mazzulla's worst coaching effort of the season, kind of in what we talked about earlier with the minutes management of Tatum. Like you said, Seamus, I think he played all the way from the end of the first to the end of the third, and probably would have been nice to have been able to have him out there to begin the fourth. I get the gamble with the lineup at the start of the fourth where JB's in foul trouble and you see Pritchard doing a good job playmaking. So you want to buy some rest for the starters to come in. And, the gamble started off a little rough, but it ended up working out. So, again, I'm part of the Mazzulla Illuminati, whatever you want to call it. I'm a delusional Mazzulla supporter, but I think he's been doing a good job this season in terms of realizing how much stress we're putting on the top six, our Death Star or whatever, our versatile six, whatever they're calling them. He realizes we're putting so much stress on them, so he's buying extra time and extra rest early on by taking JB and JT out in the first every game. And I think tonight wasn't his best coaching night. KP maybe could have been in on that last play in the fourth quarter where LaMelo Ball hit that tough layup, and that could have made a difference.
Right.
Just a rough game, but honestly, I think he's done a solid job so far this season. And then in terms of the Bucks game on Wednesday, I'm excited for it. I mean, these in-season games, I don't really know if they're playing harder because they're in season, but we've definitely seen a lot more tense moments in these in-season games so far around the league, with a lot of fighting going on in the other games, especially last week when they were going on. But should be a good game. We had a lot of fun games, Celtics Bucks, in the last few years. Obviously, had the playoff series against them a couple of years ago. Some fun games last year. Obviously, the Christmas matchup last year, the game where we rested most of our starters and took them to overtime in Milwaukee, and then like a month later went down to Milwaukee and crushed them by 40. So, should be a good matchup, and hopefully you can just channel all this anger and irritation from this loss tonight and get a nice in-season tournament W, or not an in-season tournament, excuse me, just get a nice W against the Bucks on Wednesday.
It's a must win. You drop the ball tonight in Charlotte. You're coming back home. Thanksgiving. Garden's going to be rowdy. Day before. Get right. Get healthy. Beat Milwaukee at home. You can't lose this game. Do it for Drew. Drew's going to want this is a game in which he's playing a franchise that traded him. Dame, Giannis versus the Celtics versus Tatum. It's marquee matchup. It's prime time, and I want this win badly. Guys, thank you so much for joining in and watching us tonight. I'm Rob. Next to me is my boy David. Below me is my boy Seamus Arlingo and Ian Angelo. Guys, until